Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the vlog. Model Man Frank here talking. How y'all doing? As you can see in the background, I'm working on some airplanes. Tonight's vlog is about the top 10 aviation-based movies that have airplanes in them and are set with the premise of aviation behind them. All types of aviation, including helicopters. There are movies out there that were made during my time growing up and times before that. Some classic films that came out that had a lot of planes in them and things like that. Yeah, you know, this really doesn't include like movies about aviation or about a particular airplane. It's more of movies that have a story and then the planes are woven into that storyline. So I'll probably have to make a second part, but let's say that this is part one of because there's so many movies out there. There's some good ones and some bad ones, and these are my top 10 list. 10 being not the greatest, and number one being the best. So let's kind of get started here. My top 10 airplane movies or aviation movies with a good storyline. My top number 10, and I probably will get a lot of feedback about this, but Top Gun, the very first one, came out in the 1980s. It helped the Navy get a lot of people recruited because everybody wanted to fly the Tomcat. Don't get me wrong, it's got a lot of flight shots in there, really good shots of flying and things like that. The F-14 Tomcat was the star of the movie, but the other star was also Val Kilmer, who played Iceman, and also Tom Cruise, who played, he was the lead character along with Kelly McGillis. There is a storyline in the whole thing. It's about them all going to Top Gun and him becoming an instructor. And then, there's some romance, and I don't know. It is a good film, but after you watch it so many times, Maverick. After so many times of watching it, you start to realize it's kind of dated. But the movie, again, the shots are great. You got F-14s doing practice fighting and dogfighting with A4 Skyhawks. The only bad part is you got I'm sorry, not the T-38, but you got F-5s and T-38s in the shot, and F-5s are playing, a mystical or MiG aircraft and all sorts of funny kind of antics there. But you do see a lot of F-14 video shots, and you see a lot of the A4s being used as aggressors because they're fast and nimble and everything like that, and the Tomcats have to get after them. That is my number 10 for that movie, for being the very first one. I got something on my screen there. Sorry about that. So that's one that number 10 for me. Number 9 is Flight of the Intruder. Now, this movie has a lot to say about it. There was a book written about it called Flight of the Intruder. It didn't come out anything like the movie itself. The movie had a little bit of woke culture into it, diversity, if you want to say that. The movie, Brad Johnson plays an A6 driver, or A6 pilot, A6 Intruder pilot, and William Dafoe is his co-star, along with Danny Glover, which plays an Italian. They use Danny Glover, who, we all know is from, Lethal Weapon and Predator 2 and things like that. The movie tries to do some diversity thing with that. I don't know, but this movie was set in the 90s, early 90s, I believe. And it's during the Vietnam War, the height of the Vietnam War. A6 drivers are being lost at a record pace. There's a lot of A6 flying, Intruder flying in this film. You see A7 Corsair 2 in the film, catapulting off the aircraft carrier. You see other aircraft in the aircraft in the movie. There's a really good scene at the end close to the end of the film, that has the AD-1 Sky Raider doing close air support, along with a shot of an H-3 Sikorsky C-Knight helicopter. The movie's really good in that aspect of, showing a lot of good flying scenes. And there's a storyline to carry along with all this flying action in the movie. My number 8 film, and it's not airplane, it's helicopter, is Blue Thunder. The movie's really good. It's got Roy Scheider in it. And I can't remember the second actor. Maybe somebody can help me with that one. His co-star. But it's got it's got a really good storyline to it. They've taken Blue Thunder is supposed to be a secret police helicopter that gets involved, and there's some espionage stuff going on inside of it, and a whole storyline, that really good storyline. There's Bell 206s in it. There's also models of F-16 Fighting Falcons. There's also a gun battle between Blue Thunder, which is the helicopter. Blue Thunder was actually a Gazelle, a British Gazelle that was actually dressed up to look like this really interesting looking high-tech helicopter with a big gun on the front of it. Roy Scheider plays a really good guy, and there's a kind of a detective thing going on there. And then there's a fight between Blue Thunder and a Hughes 500, which is the Hughes 500. If you don't know, is a helicopter that looks like a tadpole. So it's got a very sling boom. It was one of the very fast helicopters that was made back in the late 60s. I'm sorry, into the Vietnam War. It was used pretty heavily in Vietnam to carry troops in, and they're now being used by special forces. They're known as Little Birds. It's got a turbine on the back of it, which kind of helps it. It just makes it a really unique helicopter. It's a tiny helicopter. Can fit up to 2 pilots and up to 6 men. They would ride. These men will ride actually on the outer skids of the helicopter. But yes, that movie, Blue Thunder, is a good movie to watch. I really do. For my 8th pick, that is a very good movie to watch, I would say. It does have a pretty cool storyline to it. My number 7 film, The Final Countdown. Now, not the music, not the song, The Final Countdown. No, not that song. It's actually The Final Countdown is about an aircraft carrier that goes back in time through a wormhole in the middle of the ocean. So it's kind of like a sci-fi type of movie. It's got the USS Nimitz being portrayed in the movie. You've got F-14 Tomcats. You've got E-2 Hawkeyes. You've got A7 Corsair 2s. A couple other. Oh, you got the S2 Viking in there. So you got a couple of really cool airplanes all on the aircraft carriers. I think we do see an A6 Intruder in that film on a catapult takeoff. Also, it's got the replicas of the Tor aircraft, which were AT-6 aircraft, Texans, that were transformed to make them look like Japanese Zero aircraft. So it's got a lot of cool flying in it with the Tomcat and these replica Japanese Zeros, which are AT6s. A lot of cool flying actions. Also got the H3 Sea Knight helicopter, and it's got a really cool storyline. Again, the carrier goes through a wormhole in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, gets shot back in time to 1941, the day before the attack on Pearl Harbor, and a whole storyline prevails through that. They try getting, the story is just really fascinating. Kirk Douglas, old man Kirk Douglas, portrays the captain. You got Charlie Sheen. Martin Sheen, who is also stars in it. And you've got two other actors. Also, you've got there's about 4 different other actors in the movie. I'm not completely sure of their names, and I can't remember them. James Ferrantino is one of them. That is correct. And yes, Martin Sheen is the correct. And it is a really good movie, and it's one to watch. One movie that really needs to do it, along with that 1941 background with the Final Countdown, would be 1941, the movie. But you got to watch the director's cut. The director's cut this was the very first war film that Steven Spielberg made with John Belushi in it. It's got Dan Aykroyd. It's got Treat Williams. It's got John Candy in it. It's got the actress that played with him in opposite of Roy Scheider. What's her name? Oh, I can't remember. I'm so sorry. But yes, it is a funny movie. It's apparently 7 days after Pearl Harbor, and the Japanese a Japanese commander wants to attack the West Coast, and I mean it's a slapstick comedy. Lauren Gary, that's great. Lauren Gray, that's her name. It's got a lot of funny actors. He's what's his name? The actor, not the actor. I'm sorry. Steven Spielberg uses a lot of actors from other movies that he's done in this film. Along the P-40 Warhawk is John Belushi. He's a pilot in there, and he's looking for the Japanese because he says that the Japanese attacked Fresno, California, or something like that. And then Robert Mitchum plays General Stilwell. I mean, it is a really good film, but again, you got to watch the director's cut. Unfortunately, the director's cut, you can only buy the film. But if you do have maybe a friend that is into war movies and maybe has this film in his archive, ask him to borrow it. It's really a funny movie. A lot of slapstick. The director's cut is much better than the theatrical version. There's a lot more of the movie in, and a lot more kind of comes into the play of the storyline. Storyline's really good if you watch the director's cut. Now we're going into the top 5, and another movie that was made by Steven Spielberg, movie called Always. It is a movie. It's called Always. Just type in Always the movie. It's with Richard Dryfus and what's her name? Holly Hunter. Richard Dryfus plays a pilot along with John Goodman and Brad Johnson, who was in Flight of the Intruder. Excuse me, something was poking me on my foot. Richard Dryfus is a A6 tanker, A26 Invader tanker pilot flying firebombing missions. Basically fighting fires in the Pacific Northwest. And John Goodman is his co-star in the beginning of the film. and his buddy also, and he plays a pilot of a PBY Catalina. The film touches base with ghosts and guardian angels, and has a little bit of kind of like the afterlife kind of scenario going on to it. You've got Audrey Hepburn is in the film also, and it's a drama, but you've got a lot of aviation type planes. You've got the A6 Intruder, you've got a C-119 transport in the airplane, you've got a Super Decathlon, which Brad Johnson flies. You also have some helicopters shots in there also. I think 206s and some Bell Hueys. You've got the PBY Catalina. There's a really great part of the film in the beginning of the film. And I am going to say it, spoiler alert here. I'm not going to give you away the ending of the film. It is really good. It is very must-see. But there is a shot in the beginning of the film where you see two guys, one guy sleeping on a boat. They're in the middle of a lake. And off in the distance, this PBY comes down and lands. And what it is the PBY, being that it's a fire bomber, what does it drop? Water. So he's landing to pick up water, and you see the PBY coming down the water, and the fisherman taps his other guy on the thing, going, "Hey, look!" So they start trying to start the motor, and they can't get it going. And but you got to watch the film. So I'm not going to say what happens after that. You can only imagine. But it's a good film. It's a really good film, and that is my number 5 pick. Number 4 pick. Number 4 is High Road to China. This movie is with Tom Selleck, and has a female actress. Can't remember. EMV, can you help me out here? Who is his co-star? Tom Selleck, and there's another actor that plays in the movie. And it was a film based around just after World War I. World War II hasn't come into the picture. He has to fly in these old Stamp 0.5 aircraft or biplanes, which are portrayed as tiger moths or gypsy moth aircraft. And there's a lot of beautiful flying action going through Britain and so on. Very beautiful music. John Barry, I'm sorry, not John Barry. Bill Conti is the music composer. It's got a lot of old aircraft, biplane action going on. Got a couple trains in there, but it's a very pretty movie. It is also a drama style, action style film. Another good movie to watch. It's got a little bit of a dogfight in there, and a little bit of comedy, and also. But if you have a spouse and you want to watch a nice film with some airplanes in it, that's a good movie to watch. My third movie of the top 10. And this one, you're going to be surprised. Top Gun Maverick. I liked the film. It was I think it was much better. I mean, much, much better than Top Gun number 1. It had a better storyline. They had to play around with the storyline where, they were going to attack, some sort of Iranian, but it wasn't really Iran, bomber base or whatever like that. The movie had a good storyline, good actors. Of course, Tom Cruise did a pretty good job putting the movie together, and the movie did well. It was supposed to come out during the pandemic, during the COVID-19 pandemic, but it really didn't make it because, of course, he didn't want the movie to be overshadowed by the pandemic. So the movie came out later on. just came out last year, the year before that. Excuse me. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so Top Gun Maverick is one of it. You got a lot of F-18 flying action. I think that's all you really see is all you see is F-18. Oh, and the P-51 Mustang that Tom Cruise really does own, and he flies that in the film. But yeah, oh, and the Dark Star in the beginning of the film. That was a pretty good special effects shot there. Really good movie. I liked it a lot. I really did like it much more so than Top Gun, the original film. Okay, we're down to the last two. There are a couple of other movies. There are a lot. Now, let me just, before I get on to the last two films, there are so many movies that I still want to put, and I'll put together a number part two, and this will be on next week's episode. I'll put a number two, part two episode of the top 10 part two. And then the week after next, I may have to go out of town, but I still will do a live episode. It'll be a short episode while I'm out of town, and we'll see what we can do with that. But I have some things that I have to do, but I'll still put together a small video for y'all to see what it is. So I have some things that I have to handle. But number two in this film is the Memphis Bell. The movie portrays the men of the 8th Air Force flying deep into Germany and completing 25 missions. They completed 25 missions and they were able to get their ticket home. The movie kind of plays on a collection of all the different storylines that happened within World War II in the fight over Germany. They bring in a lot of different things. There's a lot of good flying action with the B-25. I'm sorry, not the B-25, the B-17 Flying Fortress. That is really the star of this movie, along with its fighting crew. Matthew Modine, Harry Connick Jr. is also in this film, and there's a couple of many other actors. John Lithgow is also in this film also. There's a great storyline along with it. Talks about the boys that were fighting over there, and all the hardships they had to endure. The B-17, when it came out, was a state-of-the-art aircraft, but it had its nicks, and it did kill a lot of men during its test flight. And also it had a lot of problems. It went through a lot of teething issues when the aircraft first showed up. The very first B-17s didn't have a tail gunner. They had blisters on the side where you had waist gunners, but you really get to see a sense of what it was like to fight inside this aircraft. The camaraderie, the family orientation between these men, they were all like brothers to each other, and they were out there to get a job done, and that was to defeat Nazi Germany. They talk about a lot of the things that happened with the film. Within the film, you actually get to see the altitudes they flew. They had the BF-109s that were trying to kill them. You also see Mustangs. They know them as little friends. There was a lot of stuff going on within this film, but the storyline is there, and it really is number two spot on my of this part one episode. My number one film is an older film. I picked this film because the man who is in the film was a brigadier colonel by the time he retired. He was an actor that went to war along with many other actors. They either they were in World War II themselves, or and fought along their brothers in arms. And there were others that went to Korea. Um, Strategic Air Command. You get to see in this movie B-36 Peacemakers, which was like the biggest bomber to date that was ever built. I mean, this thing was large. I mean, huge. 6 engines, all pusher props. And then on the outer wings, they had 2 engines on each side, 2 jet engines, turbofans. Not turbofans, turbojets, that helped the aircraft get aloft. I mean, this thing was huge. It was a big cigar. Uh, it was 2. The plane was very comfortable. It was pressurized, but it had its teething problems also. Also in this film, you get to see, and some of the wide angle shots, you get to see RB-45, which was really America's first jet bomber. Later became a photographer and also a weather aircraft for NASA. You get to see DC-3s. You get to see the Boeing, the 337, I think it is, Boeing 337, which is the Stratocruiser. You also get to see the B-47, which is the Stratojet, America's very first really strategic style 3-seat bomber, or 2-seat strategic bomber, nuclear bomber for jet propulsion. That aircraft had a lot of issues, a lot of teething problems with the B-47. The wing pylons, one of the teething problems with the wing pylons, which actually held the engine on. Some of them would actually, the engine would take off without the plane. And, it ended up killing a lot of pilots. Strategic Air Command was in play from 1946. It's actually based, there's a storyline around the whole film that Jimmy Stewart plays he was in the war, he was in World War II. He got out and then started a baseball career. Kind of sounds like a little bit like Ted Williams, doesn't it? Started a baseball career, and then some colonels come and see him and say, we need you to come back and train along with the fighting men in the Air Force and teach them how to, we need you to fly these aircraft. And at first he's kind of reluctant to do it, but then he really starts to enjoy it again and enjoy military life. His wife in the film goes through the ups and downs of being a military wife, and being, all over the place, and her emotions. For a film that was set in the late 1950s, early 1960s, it does touch a lot on family life and how the family unit was affected by the loved one going away on long military missions, and those thoughts of, is the next phone call going to be a bad one, or is it going to be a good one? Back then, you didn't have the internet to be able to talk to your loved one all the time. You didn't have Skype. You didn't have, the internet or social media. So you really didn't know what was going on unless you got like a phone call or you got a letter from your loved one overseas. So it does touch a little bit on that. For a movie of its time, it really does touch base a lot with some of those things. The B-36, like I was getting back to the B-36, it's a huge, huge plane. I mean, if you really want to talk scale, my Bird of Time, it's got a huge wingspan. As you can see, part of the wing is here. The other part of the wing is sitting against the garage, the back of the garage. It's a very large wing. The B-36 was this plane. I'll do a podcast on the B-36 and see if I can show some pictures of it. But it was a massive, massive aircraft. You had 2 pressurized compartments, just like the B-29. You had the front of the aircraft, where the pilot, the radio navigators, the radio operator, You had two pilots, the engineer and the bomber and the navigator, all in the front of the aircraft. And then you had to travel down a cylindrical tube. Okay, they called it the subway, and you would travel down the cylindrical tube to the back of the airplane, where you would have two gunners that would operate radio controlled guns like in the B-29, same gun sights also. And then you had the tail gunner also in the back. And the plane had actual a load that you could actually fly up to 10,000 miles with it. I mean, that's ridiculous. It was amazing. The aircraft was such highly used during this early parts of Strategic Air Command. It was used in testings of air to air fuel refueling. It was also used in the parasite training missions, where another airplane would come up below it and hook on, and then get raised up into the belly of the aircraft. But the plane had some issues. One of them was the fuel tanks weren't and the fuel pumps wouldn't operate really well in really deep cold temperatures. Also, another thing was that the aircraft skin would also the guns that they used on the remote control guns to operate the two turrets, those would also freeze. The guns that they used to protect the plane weren't the greatest in the world, especially at high altitudes. The B-29 was able to use the guns, of course, because it was being used in the Pacific. It never really went overseas and flew in Europe until later on. And they found that the B-29 had that problem also. The B-36 had the same motors as the B-29, but they were in reverse. So the motors were actually the wing. You could actually walk inside the wing core and service the motor from the inside. That's how nuts this plane was. It was humongous. You get to see the B-47. The B-47 was the Stratojet, Boeing's jet bomber. You get to see a lot of good video. There's some real live stuff you get to see in the film, and there's some model action, a lot of different model airplanes and stuff like that. Also, you get to see a flight of F-84s that are all in formation also in the movie. Really good. Very good film to watch. So that's my top 10 films. I'm sorry, excuse me. That was just something I saw behind me. Top 10 films, my picks as the top 10 films that I like. And there are more top 10 films that I'm going to add. Excuse me, I do apologize. Something, I guess it's the cat. More top 10 films that I will add to another list that I'll make. And there's some pretty good ones in that one also that I really do think you'll like also. But that's all for now. Tomorrow's another day. And, again, I really do want to say thank you to everybody who has become a member or, has subscribed to these videos that I post out, the shorts that I have made, and my remote control fanaticism. Just to give you guys a little bit of a head up, I just was working on this plane right here, the Tiger Moth. I'm going to take it up to the field tomorrow. I'll put the video together and put it out probably within the next couple of days. I had to rebuild the motor mount for it. The mounting for the motor in the front had gotten loose, and I kind of think that that's what was playing action, where every time I would push throttle in, the plane wanted to go up. And what was happening is that the motor was loose, so it was actually tilting upwards, pushing the plane up into the air. So I guess I'll find out tomorrow how it flies. Also going to be taking the jet, my EDF right here, and I'll be flying that. And I most probably will be taking one of my gliders with me. I know I haven't put out any videos about this glider in particular yet. There's a reason for that. The glider films, actually, I do think I did put together a film, and I did put it out there. You guys can check the feed if you want to watch it. I do apologize if the glider the glider's very tiny in the film. Again, I'm my own cameraman, so I'm following it along around with my GoPro, and that's my videos right there, and I use my GoPro to film it. Last week's video of the Habu flying was pretty interesting. I wanted to give you guys a up close shot of the Habu coming close to me and then flying away. So I thought you guys would like that. That EDF is actually teaching me how to fly this one before I get this one back up in the air. I got a safe receiver out of another aircraft. The Pit Special is I have to try and do something with it. My crack up with it didn't really come out too well. But that's about it for now. I really do appreciate y'all. I know many probably won't be able to see this film until later on, and that's okay. And hope you get to watch some of those films. And if you do get to watch the film, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'll leave some links to where you can find some of these films in the description. Please hit the like button if you like the film, if you like this video, and all the other videos that I have. Please hit the like button and subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you'll be alerted when I go live or when I have a new film come out. So enough for tonight. Please be safe, everyone, and may God bless us all in this beautiful, beautiful world. God bless. Model Man Frank out.